Next to China, state media there says the Chinese lunar probe has successfully taken off from the far side of the moon to start its journey back to Earth.
Something is brewing on the moon that has world leaders on edge. China and Russia are teaming up to build a nuclear power plant at the lunar South Pole, and it's not just for show. This isn't the space race of the past. This is a new battle for control over the next frontier, and the risks are bigger than anyone expected. As NASA cuts budgets, these two rivals are quietly moving in, planning something massive just out of sight. If you thought the moon was empty, you haven't seen anything yet. What happens up there could change everything down here. The new Moon Pact, China and Russia's nuclear gamble. It was an announcement that barely rippled the surface of the news cycle, but for those who watch the cosmos, the implications were seismic. China and Russia, two nations that have become synonymous with big ambitions and bigger secrets, had just inked a new agreement that sounded like something straight out of a science fiction thriller. Together, they would build a nuclear power plant on the moon. Not in the distant future, not as a vague idea, but as a concrete goal. Part of a lunar blueprint already in motion and growing more real with every diplomatic handshake. To understand the stakes of this partnership, you have to start with China's Moon program, a project that has been accelerating with almost reckless momentum over the past decade. The International Lunar Research Station, known in the shorthand of space watchers as ILRS, is not a pipe dream. This is a fully autonomous base planned for the lunar South Pole, where sunlight is rare, darkness is crushing, and temperatures plunge to levels that would make Antarctica look like Miami Beach. When China announced the ILRS back in 2021, it sent a ripple through every space agency on Earth. This was not just about planting a flag or scooping up some moon rocks. This was about building a permanent robotic outpost in one of the harshest environments ever attempted, a base that would serve as a testbed for the technologies needed to put humans, someday, on the moon for good. From the very beginning, China pitched this moon base as a joint venture. Russia, with its deep bench of nuclear expertise and decades of experience in space, was to be a key partner. But as the world tilted off its usual axis with the outbreak of war in Ukraine, talk of Russian involvement faded. For months, it seemed the Lunar Alliance had gone cold, a casualty of geopolitics and shifting allegiances. Then, almost without warning, the story changed. This spring, as the Chinese president visited Moscow, officials from both countries emerged with a fresh deal in hand. The centerpiece? That same audacious plan, a nuclear power plant, the first of its kind, to be built and operated on the surface of the moon. Power is everything on the moon. Unlike Earth, where the sun rises and sets predictably, the lunar day stretches for 14 Earth days of relentless sunlight, followed by 14 days of darkness so profound it might as well be a blackout. Solar panels are only useful half the time. Batteries, which are heavy and notoriously temperamental in cold, would be drained to their limits during the long night. That is why nuclear power isn't just a backup plan. It is the only realistic solution for a base that hopes to survive the full cycle of the moon's punishing extremes. The idea is deceptively simple. Build a compact, rugged reactor, transport it in pieces, and then assemble it robotically on the lunar surface. But the engineering, the logistics, and the political risks are staggering. Russia, with the world's most prolific nuclear manufacturer, Rosatom, and 7 decades of spaceflight behind it, brings the kind of technical muscle needed to pull off something this risky. The question nobody can answer, at least not publicly, is where the nuclear fuel will come from. On Earth, these reactors run on manufactured pellets of uranium, processed and shipped with military-grade security. On the moon, the plan might start the same way, launching fuel as precious cargo on rockets. But Chinese officials have quietly hinted at something even more ambitious, mining their own fuel from the moon itself. Recent studies show the lunar surface contains uranium, buried in concentrations that could make local refueling possible, turning the moon into both the site and the source of its own energy revolution. According to official Chinese statements, the construction of the ILRS and its nuclear reactor is scheduled to ramp up over the next decade. The blueprint calls for multiple super-heavy rocket launches using the new Long March 9, a behemoth still in development but designed to rival SpaceX's Starship in lifting capacity. The station and reactor will be built in modular segments on Earth, then shipped to the moon for autonomous assembly. The plan, on paper, is staggeringly fast. Construction missions beginning in 2031, first elements deployed by 2035, the entire station online before the mid-2030s. Yet anyone who follows space knows that the universe laughs at even the best laid plans. No one has ever built anything remotely like a moon base, let alone a functioning nuclear reactor on an alien world. Every step is a gamble, and every launch is a leap into the unknown. Why the sudden rush? The timing is no accident. As China and Russia cement their lunar pact, the United States and its allies are quietly losing momentum in their own race to the moon. The NASA Gateway Station, a once heralded pit stop for astronauts en route to the lunar surface, is running out of both funding and political support. Missions are delayed, hardware is stacked in warehouses, and every new budget proposal seems to cut deeper into the dream of American lunar dominance. Even SpaceX, which once seemed to promise a new golden age of moonshots, has stumbled. Starship's recent flights have ended in spectacular failures, with upper stages erupting in fiery clouds and debris raining over the Atlantic. It is the kind of bad luck that would worry any other nation, but for SpaceX, it is just another day at the office. Still, every missed launch is time lost, and in this new space race, timing may be everything. There are those who say none of this matters, that the moon is a dead world and the real action will be on Mars or in the asteroids. But listen closely to the way officials in Beijing and Moscow talk about the ILRS and the nuclear project. This is about far more than science or even national pride. The moon is a staging ground, a new high ground in an era where strategic advantage is measured in kilowatts, data streams, and who controls the infrastructure of the future. By mastering nuclear power off Earth, China and Russia would set themselves up to control the next wave of lunar industry, from mining rare isotopes to building satellite networks and perhaps even launching further missions to Mars. This isn't just about planting a flag, it's about changing who writes the rules for humanity's next chapter in space. If all of this feels abstract, think again. The world's most advanced militaries, intelligence agencies, and space corporations are watching the ILRS project with an intensity usually reserved for matters of national security. Nuclear power on the moon opens a door to continuous, high-capacity operations, no more hibernating through the long lunar night, no more waiting for sunlight to resume work. This means non-stop research, continuous robotic activity, and perhaps someday, a permanent human presence that never leaves. It means the possibility of harvesting resources, manufacturing fuel, and controlling strategic assets in an environment with no rules, no borders, and no oversight. There is another layer to the story, one that worries analysts in every capital. When you put a nuclear power plant on the moon, you are not just solving a technical problem. You are laying the groundwork for military applications that nobody wants to talk about openly. Nuclear reactors can power more than science labs. They can power high-energy lasers, radar jammers, or other defensive systems. If China and Russia gain a foothold, will the moon become a neutral zone, or the next front in a new kind of Cold War? As news of the nuclear pact spreads, the world is left with more questions than answers. Will this ambitious plan stay on track, or will it be derailed by technical failures and diplomatic roadblocks? Can two nations, both with long histories of secrecy and suspicion, truly cooperate on something so unprecedented? Will the United States and its allies step up their own lunar efforts, or continue to retreat in the face of budget cuts and political distractions? And perhaps most unsettling of all, what happens when the first reactor is switched on and humanity's nearest neighbor glows with the power of a sun built by human hands? Are we witnessing a new era of discovery, or the beginning of a struggle that will shape not just the future of space, but the future of Earth itself? If you thought the old space race was dramatic, just wait until the first real power struggle unfolds, not under the glare of the sun, but in the endless, silent night of the moon. The game has changed, and the world is only beginning to understand just how high the stakes have become. Power plays and lunar shadows. The dawn of the Moon Cold War. In the years since the announcement of the International Lunar Research Station and the planned nuclear power plant on the Moon, a new era of global tension has quietly begun to simmer. What was once a domain for awe-inspiring discovery and shared wonder is slowly transforming into a theatre for strategic maneuvering and unspoken rivalry. The Moon, long admired as a symbol of human aspiration, has become a proving ground not only for scientific innovation, but for the ambitions and anxieties of the world's most powerful nations. The question is no longer who can get there first, but who will be able to stay there, and who will control what happens next. Inside control rooms in Beijing and Moscow, the stakes of this lunar venture are not lost on anyone. Both nations see the Moon not as an end in itself, but as a springboard. For China, the International Lunar Research Station is a linchpin in a far-reaching plan that stretches beyond the Earth's orbit. The vision is grand: permanent outposts, industrial operations, resource extraction, and the establishment of an unbroken chain of infrastructure that can project influence across the solar system. Russia, with its deep knowledge of nuclear engineering and a legacy forged in the earliest days of the space race, views this collaboration as a vital opportunity to regain lost ground and restore its place as a leader in the exploration of space. But this partnership is more than a marriage of convenience. It is a declaration that the old rules are fading and a new order is rising, one that puts cooperation between rival superpowers at the center of the next great leap for humanity. The implications reach far beyond rockets and reactors. While technical teams obsess over launch schedules and power output, strategists in Washington and Brussels are watching every move, analyzing every press release, and piecing together what this lunar alliance might truly mean. The calculus is daunting. Whoever controls the Moon's resources will wield an outsized influence over the future of energy, communication, and even defense. The International Lunar Research Station is not just a science outpost. It is a potential base for mining operations, satellite relays, and possibly even weapons systems designed to secure or deny access to key regions of cislunar space. The ability to generate continuous, reliable nuclear power means that China and Russia could operate year-round, conduct non-stop experiments, and even power new generations of robotic or crewed vehicles to explore or exploit the Moon's surface and its hidden resources. In boardrooms and military briefings, the debate has shifted from the abstract to the urgent. Once, the United States and its allies believed that space dominance would flow naturally from their technological superiority and economic might. Now, they are forced to reckon with the possibility that initiative, determination, and the willingness to take risks might matter even more. The Chinese and Russian approach, combining robust state support, relentless investment, and a willingness to operate in the grey zones of international law, has begun to pay dividends. Each successful lunar mission is not just a technical achievement, it is a message sent loud and clear that the old order is being rewritten by those willing to act while others debate and delay. Publicly, officials downplay the competitive angle, insisting that there is room for everyone in the new space economy. Privately, the mood is far more anxious. The United States has its Artemis program, a patchwork of international partners and commercial suppliers aimed at returning humans to the Moon by the end of the decade. But the momentum is fragile. Budget cuts, shifting political winds, and the harsh reality of rocket science have slowed progress. The Gateway space station, once envisioned as the keystone of lunar exploration, now lingers in uncertainty. Each year that slips by without a major breakthrough increases the sense that the initiative is slipping away. NASA is not just fighting for funding, it is fighting for relevance in a game that has grown more complicated, more dangerous, and more consequential than ever before. On the lunar surface, the challenges are immense. The moon is a place of extremes: searing sunlight followed by relentless darkness, vast temperature swings, and an environment that punishes any mistake with brutal indifference. Nuclear power is not just a technical solution, it is a declaration of intent, a commitment to operate under the harshest possible conditions, and a promise to endure when others would retreat. If China and Russia succeed, they will have proven that they can do what no nation has ever done: build, operate, and sustain complex infrastructure on another world, far from the safety net of Earth. The psychological impact of such a feat cannot be underestimated. It would send a signal that their partnership is not only viable, but formidable, and that the balance of power in space, as on Earth, is shifting rapidly. Beyond the immediate technical and strategic concerns, there are deeper questions that trouble observers across the world. What happens if something goes wrong? A malfunctioning reactor, a launch accident, or a miscalculation in orbit could have consequences not just for the nations involved, but for the entire planet. The lack of clear international rules for space-based nuclear activity adds a layer of uncertainty that is as chilling as the lunar night. Will there be transparency? Will independent monitors be allowed to verify the safety of these reactors? What happens if the partnership breaks down, or if other nations demand a say in how lunar resources are developed and controlled? Even more unsettling are the possibilities that lie further down the road. As lunar infrastructure becomes more sophisticated, the lines between civilian and military activity will blur. Nuclear reactors can power scientific instruments and life support systems, but they can also support advanced communications, surveillance networks, and defensive technologies. In an environment where trust is scarce and verification is nearly impossible, every new development will be viewed through the lens of potential conflict. Will the moon become a new front in the endless struggle for dominance, or a place where humanity finally learns to cooperate for the common good? The race is on, and it is no longer just about reaching the moon, it is about shaping the future of life beyond Earth. China and Russia, with their new lunar pact, are betting that the boldest vision will prevail, that the world's attention will shift from terrestrial squabbles to the stark reality of survival and prosperity in space. The United States and its partners, meanwhile, face a stark choice: adapt to the new rules of engagement, or risk being left behind as the center of gravity in space drifts further and further away. As the countdown to the first nuclear-powered lunar base ticks down, the world watches with a mixture of awe and dread. The stakes have never been higher. For the first time in history, the possibility of a permanent, self-sustaining presence beyond our planet feels less like a fantasy and more like an inevitability. But with that promise comes a shadow: the possibility that the same ingenuity that sends us to the stars might also drag our old conflicts along for the ride. What will happen when the first shipment of uranium leaves Earth, bound for a reactor on the lunar surface? Who will have the authority to say how that power is used, and who will be able to stop it if things spiral out of control? What secrets will be unlocked as nations dig deeper into the moon's ancient crust? And what new risks will we discover as we push the boundaries of what is possible? The next chapter in humanity's story is unfolding under the pale, silent gaze of the moon. The choices we make today will echo not only in the vacuum of space, but in the halls of power and the hearts of people for generations to come. As the world stands on the edge of a new frontier, one question remains unanswered, hanging in the dark between worlds. Are we ready for what comes next? Or will the shadows of old rivalries darken the first dawn of the moon's nuclear age? shadows over Earth, when lunar ambition becomes a global reckoning. As the details of China and Russia's nuclear-powered moon base become clearer, the atmosphere on Earth shifts from curiosity to genuine apprehension. The lunar surface, so often seen through the lens of romance or inspiration, is now the stage for a silent conflict whose outcome may define not just who leads in space, but who holds the keys to global power. The headlines blare about innovation, but beneath them runs an undercurrent of anxiety. What does it truly mean for one alliance to hold such technological and energetic leverage beyond Earth's atmosphere? Is this the dawn of a new era of cooperation, or the beginning of a competition so intense that no terrestrial rivalry could compare? In capitals around the world, security councils and parliaments convene closed-door sessions that stretch late into the night. Advisors pore over satellite images and translated press releases, trying to discern the true scale and intent of the Chinese and Russian project. The scenario planners lay out potential futures that would have sounded like science fiction only a decade ago. The idea of a self-sustaining outpost, fueled by a nuclear reactor and capable of surviving the lunar night, is no longer just a technical marvel, it is a statement of intent. For every scientist who dreams of expanded knowledge and peaceful exploration, there is a strategist or politician worried about precedent and power. If the first nuclear reactors on the moon work as planned, there is little to stop a cascade of new projects, each more ambitious and less predictable than the last. Meanwhile, the world's media outlets find themselves caught between awe and alarm. Some celebrate the achievement, framing it as proof that humanity is finally reaching its cosmic potential, using science and cooperation to conquer the harshest frontier. Others focus on the unknowns, highlighting the risks of nuclear accidents in space, the possibility of resource monopolization, and the growing sense that an off-world arms race is no longer hypothetical. The debate spills over into public consciousness, sparking arguments and anxieties from dinner tables to digital comment sections. For every optimist who sees lunar industry as the key to a brighter, cleaner future, there is a skeptic who fears the birth of a new imperialism, with the moon as its first colony. Even in the scientific community, where collaboration has long been a shared value, a new caution begins to emerge. For decades, researchers from around the world joined hands on projects like the International Space Station, trading data and dreams in the name of progress. Now, the calculus changes. Nations with resources to spare pour new funds into space technology and lunar research, determined not to be left behind. Institutes once focused on climate change and medicine are suddenly investing in lunar geology, nuclear engineering, and robotics. Talent is recruited, patents are filed, and old rivalries are rekindled as governments realize that to control the moon's power is to control a piece of the future itself. On the ground in China and Russia, national pride surges. State media outlets broadcast sweeping documentaries and triumphant reports about the lunar project, presenting it as the ultimate symbol of resilience and technological superiority. The moon base becomes a rallying cry, a way to inspire unity and justify further investment in science and industry. For citizens, the project is both distant and intimate, an echo of past achievements in spaceflight, but also a tangible promise that the future will belong to those who dare. There are parades, slogans, and songs. Children learn the names of rockets and scientists alongside their alphabets. The sense of possibility is real, but so is the quiet awareness that all of this is happening in the shadow of a world order that feels increasingly fragile. For the United States and its allies, the response is equal parts resolve and reckoning. Old assumptions about technological dominance and global leadership are tested as never before. The budgets for Artemis and commercial moon landers are revisited. Private companies are urged to move faster, innovate further, and take bigger risks. The conversation expands beyond engineering to include ethics, strategy, and the deep questions of what kind of civilization humanity wants to build. Should there be international treaties on lunar nuclear power? Who gets to decide what is safe or fair? Will the moon be open to all, or dominated by the first few who plant their flags and build their bases? Meanwhile, the public's imagination is fired by rumors and speculation. Are there secret technologies aboard the Chinese-Russian modules? What are the true long-term plans for lunar mining? Is there already a race to secure the best craters and the richest veins of water ice? Or is that just a myth to justify ever larger investments? Science fiction merges with science fact as artists, writers, and thinkers begin to paint scenarios of a world transformed by its relationship with the moon. In some versions, lunar cities flourish, powered by clean energy and shared purpose. In others, the moon becomes the spark for a new kind of conflict, with rival powers jockeying for control over what is now the ultimate high ground. No one is more aware of these possibilities than the people who work on the project itself. For the engineers and technicians in China and Russia, the lunar base is a challenge unlike any before. Every design decision is fraught with uncertainty, every mission a leap into the unknown. They face problems that no one on Earth has ever solved. How to keep machines running in the dust and vacuum. How to safeguard nuclear fuel from the cosmic elements. How to build and maintain systems that must work perfectly 250,000 miles from home. Their pride is genuine, but so is their anxiety. Each day's progress is matched by new risks and responsibilities. They know that one mistake could reverberate across the world, changing not just the fate of the project, but the reputation of their nations. Outside the technical sphere, the implications grow ever more profound. The lunar base forces a re-examination of every aspect of global society, from economics and governance to philosophy and identity. How do you value resources mined from another world? Who profits and who pays? How does law operate in an environment where there is no precedent, no history, and no one to enforce the rules? As the power plant hums and the lights of the base flicker into the darkness of the lunar night, these questions become impossible to ignore. The impact ripples even further, touching on environmental, existential, and even spiritual concerns. Some see the lunar base as a symbol of hope, proof that humanity can rise above its divisions and push the limits of what is possible. Others see a warning, a signal that we are bringing our old habits, competition, consumption, conquest, into a realm that was once untouched. There are debates about the fate of the moon itself, about the risk of contaminating its ancient surface, about the right way to honor its place in human culture and imagination. There are calls for international oversight, for the establishment of lunar parks and protected zones, for a new kind of stewardship that looks beyond profit and power. As the years pass and the base becomes reality, the world changes in ways no one can fully predict. New alliances form, new rivalries emerge, and the map of global influence is redrawn. The moon, once a silent companion in the night sky, becomes a mirror for all of humanity's ambitions and fears. The decisions made now will shape not just the fate of one project, but the destiny of the species. Will the lunar base be a beacon of cooperation or a fortress of competition? Will it inspire unity or sow division? The answers are being written in real time, not just by leaders and scientists, but by every person who looks up at the moon and wonders what comes next. In the end, the story of China and Russia's lunar power plant is not just about technology, politics, or even the moon itself. It is about the moment when humanity takes its next great leap, bold, uncertain, and full of consequences no one can yet foresee. The world holds its breath, waiting to see what happens when ambition and anxiety collide 250,000 miles from home. And so, as the lunar night gives way to the first pale light of dawn over the South Pole, a new chapter in human history begins. Will it be a story of greatness or of folly? Only time and the choices we make now will tell. As the world turns its gaze skyward, the alliance between China and Russia is already sending ripples across the globe. For the first time, we are seeing a partnership not just competing for space exploration glory, but changing the very definition of what it means to have power beyond Earth. This moon base is more than an engineering feat. It's a symbol that the balance of power is shifting, and old assumptions are being challenged every day. While some will see hope for international collaboration and scientific progress, others can't help but worry about the unknown consequences. Will these lunar ambitions spark a new era of unity? Or are we inching closer to a space race that could reshape global alliances and rivalries? No one can say for certain, but one thing's clear: the moon has become the newest stage for human ambition. What happens up there could change everything down here. Share your predictions in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.